Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about dangerous otherness. In the book Childhood's End, Arthur C. Clarke uses the arrival of aliens and utopian technology as a metaphor, as a Trojan horse for a new colonizer that resembles fallen angels and the slow acceptance of pure evil. The story begins with a mysterious alien race arriving on Earth and helps mankind resolve many of its social and economic problems. The only catch is that the aliens refuse to reveal themselves. Initially, a group of humans resist the advice these alien overlords give and kidnaps the United Nations Secretary General to protest their cooperation with them. The story then jumps 50 years into the future. After the 50-year time jump, all humans have magically accepted the aliens, and Earth has achieved a type of utopia. Clarke tends to tell rather than show these developments. He gives the reader large chunks of narrative text describing the utopia, but the actual characters and their own stories seem to have little to do with that utopia. The final reveal itself has the overlords resembling demons. You see, people can be tricked into reversing their opinions on moral issues, even to the point of constructing good arguments to support the opposite of their original positions. Lund University in Sweden conducted a study on morality with 160 volunteers. They filled out a 2-page survey on the extent to which they agreed with 12 statements, either moral principles relating to society in general or about the morality of current issues in the news, from prostitution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But the surveys also contained a magic trick. Each contained 2 sets of statements, one lightly glued on top of the other. Each survey was given on a clipboard, on the back of which the researchers had added a patch of glue. When the participants turned the first page over to complete the second, the top set of statements would stick to the glue, exposing the hidden set but leaving responses unchanged. 2 statements in every hidden set had been reworded to mean the opposite of the original statements. For example, if the top statement read, "Large-scale governmental surveillance of email and internet traffic ought to be forbidden as a means to combat international crime and terrorism," the word forbidden was replaced with permitted in the hidden statement. Participants were then asked to read aloud 3 of the statements, including 2 that had been altered, and discuss their responses. Half of the participants did not detect the changes, and 69% accepted at least one of the altered statements. People were even willing to argue in favor of the reverse statements. A full 53% of the participants argued unequivocally for the opposite of their original attitude in at least one of the manipulated statements. This effect, called choice blindness, appeared in other areas, including taste and smell and aesthetic choice. The results suggest that standard surveys are not good at capturing the complexity of attitudes people actually hold. These findings suggest that if you're fooled into thinking that you endorse a view, you will do the work yourself to come up with your own reasons for endorsing it.
Justification, yep.
This speaks to more than 100 years of marketing and advertisement and social engineering.
People don't even realize they're being manipulated if you ask a question a certain way. I've talked about it on the past podcast that I no longer have the job, but at one point I was a union rep at my company, and company has at one point we had 52,000 employees. I think we have 38,000 now. But the point being is that I didn't go to law school. I had one law class, and when I would have a hearing to defend somebody's job, I was about 40%. I shouldn't even be that high because the way it's set up, everything's against you. And the reason I brought it up is because it's the way that's how I learned how to get these people, by the way you ask a question. I just had this conversation with my daughter. She's having a mock trial at Creighton right now. And I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "The prosecutor." I said, "Well, look," I said, what you're really doing is making a statement. But if you say in the beginning of that statement, is it true that, then all of a sudden what you're really doing is turning that statement into a question. And then you're making a yes and no question. And now you have them going in the direction you want. But by the way people ask questions, and what Roscoe just explained to you is that if I can get you on board with it, you'll justify it yourself. And I won several hearings that way by saying, "Hey, is it true you have a small penis?" And then they got to answer that. And it just like what I'm doing is there's a statement I want to get out there, and the statement is this, this, and this. But if I stick that, but by making it a question, they're trying to justify or explain yes and no, but then they want to tell you, and I'm like, oh, no further questions. I got what I wanted on the record. But the point I'm making is that sometimes we don't realize we're being manipulated when somebody asks you a question. It's our desire to please. It overwhelms us. Our desire to disagree. We'll find what we think the point of this is, and we'll go in that direction, not realizing that it's to our own detriment.
People do this over and over and over. And for the Arthur C. Clarke book, The Childhood's End, this human civilization in the story had been warring and having all types of problems since the beginning of time. And these aliens came down and they took away all their problems, but they never really questioned who the aliens were and what their real intentions were. They were just so satisfied with having their problems solved for them, they didn't have to think for themselves. But we see this time again where people would rather have somebody do the thinking for them, or they delegate that responsibility to someone else. And by doing that, they put their conscience at ease.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say they're convinced that if somebody else gives them an objective, that some kind of way is better than them coming up with their own objective. Or just had this talk with a mutual friend where he really doesn't want to make a decision, but he's still upset that his life's not going the way he wants. And so when I say stuff, I can be a jerk at times, but I'm like, stop acting like being a pussy is being noble. Stop acting like because you didn't put up a conflict that some kind of way that this is what's best. You're giving away you're intentionally giving away your culpability. You don't want to be responsible for the outcome, but you'll take credit for the success. But then when it doesn't succeed, oh, my life is out of control. I'm like, man, stop bitching. If you didn't participate, then you have no reason to complain. And that's what you're literally doing. People don't want to be responsible anymore. And I kind of get it when it comes to the younger folks. But when somebody's in our age group, you know what I'm saying? I ain't got patience for that shit. It's annoying. Like, look.
Well, but by the time a person has become a full adult, they have accumulated habits that have either helped along their existence or hindered their existence. Procrastination and the lack of drive are at the root of most people's problems.
Okay. The individual. And one of the things recently that came up, he's telling me, oh, I procrastinate too much and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, look, dude, you don't suck your ex-wife's dick so much you spitting out stupid shit. I said, literally, what you have is not simply procrastination. You have a severe issue with anxiety, but you're not addressing it. So literally what you do is you see something that, I'm going to give an example. There's a vehicle right there that needs to be worked on. It should have took 2 weeks to get this done. Money, you got to wait for payday. Instead, you let it sit there for 3 or 4 months. You see it and it causes you anxiety, so you don't address the issue. You call it procrastination because that's what your ex-mate said. That's the words that they used. But the truth of the matter is you have anxiety. And so now what causes you the anxiety, you're not fixing. And now every time you see it, you have anxiety and then you avoid it. Instead of fixing that within a reasonable amount of time, I feed off the success of the situation. I repaired something. I created something. I fixed something. But you instead, like, oh my God, it's a problem. Oh my God, as if that problem can't be solved. And so you're using the word procrastination because that's what the person that browbeat you to death was saying. But the truth of the matter is you have anxiety. And if you fixed it, you'd be fixing your anxiety. And so that's the issue. And so sometimes it's true, procrastination is a problem, but sometimes it's an underlying issue. And I talked about it in my own personal life. I dated a lot of strippers. But I've revealed on the podcast that I have ADHD, and a lot of times my brain craves stimulus. Yeah, I like the chick with the bad body, but I also was drawn to a person with problems because I didn't have to address my own
Horrible
problem.
combination.
Yes, terrible combination. But what it was is that my brain craved stimulus, so I was searching for bitches that were train wrecks, and but also I had this noble thing about me where I can't take advice from her. She can't, say anything to me, but the underlying, once I realized that what I was doing was a symptom, I just recently had this conversation. Like, you have to separate yourself from your symptoms. You are not your symptoms. And so, like I said, what I'm telling you is a lot of times, yeah, there's some procrastination, but what's the underlying cause? Are you just simply lazy and just or do you have a real issue that you've been triggered? You could have been triggered by something. That's why you have the term stuff like trigger warning. If you proceed, you may be triggered. Well, some people, when they get triggered, they fuck around and avoid what's best for them, avoid their goal.
So going back to this study with 160 volunteers and the magic trick within the survey. So these people were taking this survey, but they weren't aware of there was a bit of deception in the method of the survey or the test taking. So this is not all about willpower. This is about discernment and learning how to not see a wall of words and be confused by them, or just basically conflate something by just seeing a general statement and not really seeing it for what it is. We've known about trick questions on tests since we were 6 and 7 years old.
Since the benchmark.
Yes, exactly. And they would tell us that there are trick questions in here. So we've known about trick questions for a long time. Of course, these tests in school were a barometer of your awareness and how keen you were to pick up on inconsistencies.
You remember when we were in high school and you took the, SAT, PSAT, all that stuff. Do you remember when they first told you that the SAT was, was it racist? That they had certain questions in the math part, when they dissect them, were racist. I'm like, how could it be racist? And then they break down that, okay, so it talks about this, and this, or uses this name, and then you sit and you dissect it as you got older. You're like, the question ain't directly racist, but it plays on your life experience. And if your life experience is this, you gravitate towards this. But if your life experience is that, you might not get what this, or you might focus too much on the.
It was based on the experience of middle class white children.
Period, and it was geared towards such. And hell, this black folks don't do that great on word problems. That was something that I learned. That's a thing. That was a real thing.
No, See, that's something that sounds more like propaganda and gaslighting, because I don't buy that at all, because there's plenty of us that excelled at English literature in school and went on to become prolific MCs that are ridiculous with wordplay.
Bottom line, you were a better reader than me from first grade on. You were a better reader than me in kindergarten too, but that's a whole nother. So your ability to understand the written language is way superior to mine, even to this day. But like I said, I've had reading issues from the beginning. I had the green and red reading book. You had the blue one. That's just you were always in a higher ability to read. But then again, also, just because somebody has a disability has nothing to do with intelligence. This world wasn't set up for me or the way I read. Now, I ain't ever quit though, because I had an asshole for a mother that made me read. But yeah, bro, your ability to understand the written word is way superior to mine, bro. You read faster. That shit right there. Like, you can read something in 36 seconds that takes me 2 minutes to read, and you'll still get a better comprehension than me.
So the motivation behind these tests is highly questionable. Now, when I'm talking about the test, I'm talking about this one that has the magic trick in it, or the
where they
deceptive
removed the
motivation. So they're testing to see if people can be persuaded to think something else or change their morality. This speaks to the overall underlying issue of how what is happening in our society is that our bedrock moral foundation is being eroded because we're being overstimulated. It's a combination of two things. It's a combination of overstimulation and clear deception. But as I said in the beginning, this deception and manipulation was perfected in the 1950s after World War II, when you had this baby boom and all this exploding middle class. They were basically expanding outward, and they created this huge consumer base in America, and they found a way to take food and mass produce it and add all types of artificial ingredients to the food. So by doing this, these organizations and these industries, they got together in a meeting and they said, listen, we're going to need a ton more ketchup. So this part of agriculture, we're going to need a whole lot more tomatoes. We're going to need a lot more hamburgers. So this part of agriculture is going to need a lot more cows and land for those cows. We need to find a way to then freeze these patties and put them on trucks and ship them to schools so that kids can eat these hamburgers, thus making money for the farmer, thus making money for the industries. And hey, farmer, if you happen to have a bad year, we're going to subsidize your farm and give you money to keep you going in the bad years when you have a bad harvest.
You left out two parts. The subsidy part is really important, because then you're forced to grow certain crops, even though they're bad for the land or bad for the people, because you want that subsidy money. Second, when we don't have enough land over here, we would go overseas to our allies and give that business to our allies, whether it was agriculture, manufacturing, whatever. And that was the magic carrot we would dangle in front of these other nations to fall in line with our beliefs. Yeah, man, that's some deep shit. I think the other part is that the reason I think we can tell that there's a problem with how America sees stuff is what outrages us now. You know, back in the day, this shit wouldn't fly. You know, and we talked about this in past podcasts where I've always said that World War II defined us way too much. But you dig what I'm saying? That this conflict, how we came back, how you said food manufacturing. Before, our food was fresh. You know, either you ate the fruit, the vegetable, or the animal, you know, directly. Now all of a sudden, it's necessary to preserve this, so we have to add these preservatives. And now it went from maybe 99%, you know, complete food to 75% food and 50% food, and the rest is chemicals. But we accept that as food. In other nations, these preservatives are literally outlawed, and these dyes and these, as you put it, other material. Like literally, if they don't want to put what it is, they can simply say on a label, other material. And that's what this whole conversation is about, is what the fuck is the other material? Clearly, either you don't know what it is or you don't want me to know what it is, because if I know what it is, I probably would not consume this.
So if you knew that you could dumb the population down by adding certain things into the diet and into the environment that would affect the pineal gland, then naturally you would do this, but you would make sure that you and your forebears were steering clear from this, or you would not have this on your corporate campus when it's time for everybody to eat, because you need everybody sharp to do your work. So by taking this part of humanity and dumbing it down, you're creating a slave class that is not physiologically equipped to fight and resist the manipulations that you are putting into the education system, into the food system, into the water supply, into the air, and electronics. 4 different elements. 3 of them are in the food, or 3 of those in the food, and 1 is in the environment. Glyphosate. Glyphosate is nearly in all groundwater now because of the runoff from irrigation that is used on these factory farms. And this glyphosate causes cancer, and it also affects the pineal gland and the lymphatic system. Now, fluoride is another one. Fluoride is in the municipal water supplies. This
We've been brainwashed to ask for it. We ask for
causes
fluoride.
the pineal gland to harden. Now,
Calcification of the pineal gland.
plastics. It is now reported that we eat one credit card of plastic every year. So, but it's in the waters. It's in everything. And it's affected. Because look, okay, we can just park it here at plastics for a second. Because if you look at plastic and what it does to the human body, it starts to disrupt hormones and cell division. And
Yes, they're finding on the cellular level now.
it causes problems with the human body. But it's in everything, because think about what happens when you go to the grocery store. You can go to a health food store. You can go to the healthiest health food store, and they have everything in plastic. You can go to Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, some small mom and pop grocery store, and they have everything in plastics. So then whenever they prepare something, and if it's cooked, you're going to put it in that plastic. And the heat from the food that's put in there is going to cause off-gassing in the plastic, which now breaks down into the food. Now, you have plastic when you go buy water. You can buy those big old water cooler containers, or you can buy a jug of water from the store, or you can buy a small 16-ounce bottle of water. It comes in plastic. There was one company that was selling water in glass cylinders, and they stopped doing that. It used to be that you could buy any kind of drink and it would come in a glass bottle.
And they knew that stuff back in the 50s and 40s, maybe as late as the 60s, but they knew that if it came in glass, it was healthier. But plastics, the way they get you with the plastics is, I remember growing up, and you'll contest to this, there'd be broken glass and broken bottles all down the street. And so that's one of the selling points for the plastic. Oh, it's not as dangerous. Look, it's terrible when a kid's playing basketball and runs and falls on a bottle. It happened to my cousin. That's a bad thing. But the way you're poisoning our DNA, the way you're poisoning us for generations with the plastic.
I'll take a cut from some broken glass over long-term DNA damage.
Look, be careful, motherfucker. How about that? The other crazy part, I don't know if you're going in this direction, but we always talk about Monsanto, but DDT, atrazine, glyphosate, all these things came from one company damn near. You know what I'm saying?
So I've only spoken about the first three: glyphosate, fluoride, plastics, and now dirty electricity. 5G and dirty electricity from transformers in small little power plants on the corner or in your neighborhood. They tell you not to live under power lines because that can cause cancer. Well, what's causing cancer? The dirty electricity from the wires. Have you ever went by one of those power lines? I'm talking about the massive ones that have the big metal towers that hold up like those 4 wires in a row that go like across an entire neighborhood or an entire region. Whenever you go by one of those after it's rained or there's like water in the air, a lot of moisture, you can hear that crackling. So what that water is basically doing is almost making that visible. It's making it visible to your ears. And all you have to do now is extrapolate with your third eye an aura of electricity around that wire that is vibrating because there's raindrops falling on it. Does that travel? Does it move? Yes. It probably falls straight down, or it congeals into a cloud in a certain area. But yet it has to be straight down, because people who live under power lines wind up getting cancer. 5G has been causing problems with people who live within close proximity. I tell you people all the time, turn off your router before you go to sleep. Make sure it isn't under your bed when you're in a hotel. Move away from it. Make sure your head isn't near it. Make sure you're at least 5 feet to 10 feet away from a router or internet router. Listen, man, if you're in a hotel and there's a router in your room, and I've been in hotel rooms where I would walk in there and there's like a big ass router in the wall, I would just unplug it. I would unplug it when I'm not using it and I'm sleeping. And then when I need to use it, I'll plug it back up. It'll be fine. It's not going to explode.
Look, I remember being a kid. There's a soccer field off of Center Street, like 130th and Center, something like that, right before, or maybe more like a 90th and Center before you get to the interstate. And I remember we'd be playing soccer, but we had them big power lines right next to it, and you could hear them hum. You could hear them. Like you didn't need no damn rain. This is when you stop playing soccer and it was almost like you can hear the shit. And of course, we didn't know any better. But then all of a sudden they tell you, yeah, you shouldn't live near power lines, and they would have them. They would have them in the low, the low end part of town or the broke part of town. They're above ground. But if you were in a nice part of town, they'd be off to the side, like running. How do I say this? Like we have a foot trail that passes through the whole city where you can a bike trail. Well, if you pay attention, those power lines run by the bike trail. They're not going through they're going through the neighborhood, but they're not around the people. But when you're in Northo, it's there. It's just the fact that, like you said, a lot of this shit is environmental, and that's not. You didn't even get to the heavy metals, like I didn't realize how bad aluminum is for you, and how prevalent aluminum is, and how aluminum damages you on the cellular level. How many times do you hear about heavy metals being in baby food? Like, why the hell do you need lead in baby food?
Because, so there has to be some type of oversight. But restraint looks like superstitious fear to the excited, profit-driven tech sector. They will push the envelope as far as they can until somebody says, hey, this is not safe. And you have to put in these guardrails to keep these people from going over the edge, because they will. They will push it right over the edge and then blame it on their predecessor or somebody else or anybody else but themselves. They want profits and they want scientific innovation. But at what cost? Because if you listen to what I've been saying, the cost has been your legacy, because all these things that I'm talking about, glyphosate, that's technological innovation, fluoride, technological innovation, plastics, and dirty electricity are all products that come from technological innovation.
Hold on, I'm going to disagree with you on one point. You're saying that all these things are necessary for technological innovation.
No, I didn't say they're necessary. I said they are the side effect.
No. I'm saying that they use that as an excuse when clearly we have other stuff out there that doesn't make you sick and doesn't cause these problems, but we're not using it.
But the thing is that they won't use those because they're not technologically superior, or they have everybody on the safety board in their pocket that will just sign off on these things. It's like, we're going to use this we're going to use coal instead of nuclear. We're going to use this instead of solar. They're looking for all these different ways. I'm going to tell you something that's fucking crazy right now. The speed at which AI companies are progressing has seen them wanting to bypass the electrical grid for nuclear power. So what they're wanting to do is make small nuclear reactors everywhere.
Everywhere.
Dude,
okay, so
that is fucking dangerous.
Roscoe, hear what I am saying. What I am saying is that their agenda is making you sick and evil. It is not technology. It's not money. It's not any of those things. Those are the side effects and byproducts. That they're intentionally wanting to cripple you genetically, mentally, and whatever. Yeah, that is their goal. It has nothing to do with this goes back to how you ask the questions. We're brainwashed into thinking like, oh, man, this plastic's better for us. Oh, man, we need 5G. Oh, we've been brainwashed to think that a Wi-Fi is better than a wired system. Just give me some wires.
But science likes to play God, and they enjoy tampering with life, and that poses serious problems.
But they're also telling us that those are side effects when those are clearly that their primary goal is to make you sick, stupid, and weak. You understand what I'm saying? That's why they chose the products they chose, not because they're more efficient or faster, or because the main thing it's going to do is make you slower, your kids.
But watch this. So people will listen to this and be like, well, I work for these tech companies, and that's not our mission statement. Hey, dummy, you got to understand who created the technology that you're selling, because it wasn't you. So you just got on the bandwagon of something that's hot now because you want to be on the cutting edge and you are driven by profit. Being driven by profit, it's here or there. It can be good. It can be bad. But here's the deal. The think tanks that bring these technologies from the military sector into the private sector.
Yes. Preach.
They are on a runaway train toward profit, and there is no humanity attached to these people whatsoever.
Give me 3 minutes. So, there's a show I watch called The Y Files, and they'll have a good episode every once in a while, and I'll send it to you. The latest episode that came out this week is called The Dark Side of DARPA. And the guy's talking, and he's breaking it down, and he's talking about Google. And then, he has a sidekick, which is the fish. And he's like, if we're complaining about Google, and Google was started by DARPA, what platform are we on? And he goes, well, we're on YouTube. He says, we're about to get in trouble. He says, well, and he goes into about Agent Orange and how the people in Vietnam got sick. And he's talking about how sick his father-in-law was. And so he gets mad right there on camera and goes off. And you think he's going on a tangent. He's like, no, he's showing how all these things were developed through DARPA, but then they were sold to us or used, for whatever means. And, very rarely does somebody, want to even talk about, you're told not to bite the hand that feeds you. They start drilling that in your head at an early age. The reason they're doing that is not because it's a good philosophy. It's because you need to know what side your bread is buttered on, that you need to recognize that you wouldn't have this platform available to you, so you watch what you say kind of thing. But that's that brainwashing. We recite this shit from so early on that we don't realize that we're being brainwashed. We think that we're saying something smart. But that episode, if you get a chance to check it out, it's called The Dark Side of DARPA. And it breaks down the connection between all these different diseases, all how it affected people, all this different stuff, and how DARPA will develop something such as the internet, such as Google, which is the best search engine out there. But at what cost? You do realize the CIA has the ability to yada yada yada, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, be careful about that shit when you sit there and say that. Not you, of course, but I'm saying that when people say, "Oh, don't bite the hand that feeds you," that is a way of saying that you can't speak up against somebody, or that whoever gives you money they're better. Look, a lot of people are working for companies that are doing bad stuff, and you justify it because of a paycheck. But we've always told people, this has always been our message, is that you need to invest your money and look for a way to wean yourself off the tit of capitalism, mass media, government oversight, prison industrial complex, you name it. That should be your goal, is, make that $1 million invested, and then when you retire, be able to, clearly raise your children the way you want, and not be beholden to somebody, because this is the shit that you're doing, whether you know it or not.
Each human advancement brings a loss of an innate practical skill. So when you hear about people that cannot reproduce certain things that were done 25 years ago, is because that skill was not passed on, because they found a way to automate that. So if you automate so much of our production capacity, we will lose the skill to make anything. People wonder, like, well, why is blacksmithing still important in this day and age? Because you need to know how to fabricate things from metal.
Yes,
that can be used in machines that will work, and to make things if everything else fails. That if, there's still, people still ride horses for leisure, of course, but horses are still practical in some applications. They are parts of the United States that you cannot access with a 4-wheel or 2-wheel vehicle, and you need a pack animal or an equestrian creature to venture into this rugged terrain faster than you can on foot. So you need shoes for those horses, and a blacksmith makes shoes. So there's still guys out there that are making shoes for horses. And then you wonder, well, okay, is sword making played out? Do we need to stop making swords? No, you should always have bladed weapons to protect yourself, whether it be a hunting knife, a pocket knife, or a full katana.
You got a
Because
whole show forged in
these
fire.
are legacy traditions that should maintain parallel to this rapid fire bullet train of scientific innovation.
Okay, Roscoe, you said some deep shit. All I'm saying is they're convincing us, or they're already weeding us off this on a situation where you should not breed naturally. Look, the fact that they're pushing that rainbow agenda where you got people that want to pair up with each other, that's fine. Look, back in the day, growing up, we didn't pay attention. We didn't understand this, but if you pay attention, you've always had homosexual people. But what did they do when they turned 18? They got married, had 3 or 4 kids, raised their kids, and then when they hit 40, 50, 60 years old, then they would break up with that mate and maybe go explore their sexuality and that kind of shit. Because their primary function was to make children. But we lived in a society where we needed workers, and that's how they raised you. Now they're raising you like, oh, you're gay from birth. You should, and you can't change your mind, and you can't help yourself. And you got 3 or 4% of the population dictating shit to the rest of the population, concepts, pushing stuff on you, bringing stuff
and
to.
How much of that is based off of the mental health facilities and the mental health industries and companies that make drugs that want to get you hooked on drugs? See, this is this entire gaslight scenario that is underlying all of these movements that people aren't talking about. And this is why I mentioned this child lover Arthur C. Clarke and his book Childhood's End, and how it's really about people blindly going along until it's too late and they realize, oh man, I have been in league with the devil the entire time. But look at the entertainment industry, because the entertainment industry and social media are clear portals to declining morality. And we say this to each other all the time. Man, remember movies back in the 80s? You couldn't even say fuck on TV. You couldn't say shit on TV. In the 2000s, with Breaking Bad, they were saying shit and bitch and all these words on regular, cable. You know what I'm saying? On AMC. I'm like, well, it's on at 9 o'clock at night, so of course all the children are asleep. No, they're not. No, they're not. Because if you're a kid of the 80s like me, you were up all night watching TV.
Look,
or playing video games. So what I'm saying is, you saw this slow march towards profanity in television. And violence in television. Preach. And you start seeing more until you get to American Horror Story, which is this. It started off as this horror TV show, and then became this gay message. This homoerotic message in television shows about horror, and I'm like, which had serious issues with black men all the time in that show. And I was like, this is bullshit. I'm not watching this no more. And so what I'm talking about is like how you're getting all of these messages that are being sent to you. And I'm going back to this Swedish study that talks about how you can get people to change their moral compass. You can reorient people's moral compass slowly by rewording things. And like I said, people who had an issue with large-scale government surveillance of email and internet traffic ought to be forbidden as a means to combat international crime. And then you change the word forbidden. So then it becomes large-scale governmental surveillance of email and internet traffic ought to be permitted as a means to combat. So by changing those two words, forbidden and permitted, that little switch right there. See, if you don't catch shit like that, that's how you wind up with your kids singing songs about wet ass pussy. That's how you wind up with this shit on fucking TV. Now listen, when we were little kids, Two Live Crew was, pop that pussy and all this shit. You know what I'm saying? And
hey, we want some pussy.
Exactly. You see, what Megan and Cardi B are doing is not new. What I'm saying is that it's commonplace now.
It wasn't on regular radio.
It was fringe. This shit was fringe.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. You named a lot of shit. First things first, American Horror Story. I remember the episode with Angela Bassett where she said that she came from pure Iroquois bloodlines. She's letting you know the Native Americans were black. Number one.
That
Number
was
two.
Coven. That was season 3.
Yep. Very good. The other thing I remember one of the earlier shows on regular TV that started pushing the envelope was that NYPD Blue. Remember where they had a titty pop out, but I could never find that episode but it was
No. Go back to the Super Bowl when Janet Jackson wanted her
no,
titty exposed.
that was
She
much
wanted
later.
controversy, and
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake pulled. All that was planned.
But he denied it, didn't he? But hold on. I'm talking about when we were kids. I just remember the show NYPD Blue, and they were talking about how it's pushing the envelope. Well, they already show nudity in Europe. We need to try it over here. And people, my point was, people protested and they pulled that shit before they even aired it. You understand what I'm saying? Just when the rumor got out, what ABC was trying to do, people wrote in. This is what I meant about the type of outrage. Back in the day, when that outrage hit, the censors, like, okay, we got to watch what we're doing. We can't air this episode. People would write into the networks and complain, and then they would change their behavior. Now they dictate the behavior, what's acceptable.
Because nobody is writing in, nobody's complaining, because everybody has become overloaded, and this is chronic overstimulation.
I don't think it's overstimulation. I think
it is overstimulation. And people aren't pushing back because they're exhausted. Listen, chronic overstimulation can make you feel stressed out, burned out, and unable to cope with stressors. Over time, it will impact your interactions with your family and your ability to do your job. Decreasing overstimulation begins with understanding how it happens. Sometimes your brain can't handle everything you give it and ask it to accomplish. So here's a couple examples of things that are signs of overstimulation. Bright lights and loud noises, chronic stress, excessive use of social media, lack of sleep and rest, not having a quiet place to work, online news consumption, too much caffeine. I want to say something about a quiet place to work. I enjoy going to the library because it's somewhat of a sanctuary. You go in there and it is like a monastery. It's quiet. You can get so much stuff done because it's quiet. People who live in the city don't really know what true quiet is. And I'm always observing the sound levels where I am. Because we're recording to microphones every week and I make music. So I'm always aware of loudness and silence, these two extremes, right? So when you go into a library, you can just, you might hear little kids running through the hall or something like that. That's fine. The joyous sound of children playing that's no problem. Or you can go to a study room, which it's just completely silent. You can just sit in there and work and be at peace. So then what I started to notice is that people would come into the library with completely blind self-awareness, and they would be speaking on their cell phones with the speaker on.
That would never have happened years ago.
And you would have to say to these people, hey, my man, can you turn that off? Because we're in a library right now, and I don't want to hear your conversation. And I would get into it with people. I was like, yo, bro, miss me with all that. You're in a library. Respect the surroundings. Take that shit outside. And then, the manager would come up like, you got to go outside with that bullshit. You can't have that in here. And I've seen librarians intimidated by street people who would come in and they don't want to say nothing. So I was like, I'll handle this. Take that shit outside, man. You're in a library. You and your fucking entitlement is not wanted in here.
What I was going to say is people are now so used to being disturbed, they think it's a way of life.
Oh.
Their thought process is so used to being disrupted that they don't realize they're disrupting somebody else. The reason you go to a library is for the side. Sometimes I'm older now, it's easier for me to think, but other times I need silence. And somebody will talk, it keeps breaking my concentration. Chill. You remember your mom on the telephone? You say, hey, y'all shut the fuck up, I'm on the phone.
Yes. So, but here's the thing though, is those places need to be maintained because they represent a form of discipline and austerity that is necessary for the greater intelligence of humanity. The reason being is that people grow up around so much noise that they don't know how to be quiet. They don't know how to sit still. They can't still their mind. They have a monkey brain. They're always going to grab something or jump off something. I'm like, hey, you're 25 years old. Act like an adult. Stop acting like you're on Instagram right now. You're in a library. Shut the fuck up.
We don't have adults anymore. And this is what you're saying. Why the society's so fucked up? Because you don't have people that know right from wrong. Look, I remember one time they did like this kind of not a survey, but they did they were filming a test. And so they would have like 3 or 4 people, and 2 of them were plants, but then they would have the regular person, and they had talked about the big thing about black folks. You can't give them the wrong amount of change. So they're doing this thing, and they're handing out money. They're giving change back, and they give black person wrong. They said black people would speak up 97% of the time. Like, hey, that's not the right amount. Didn't know nothing else. They were talking politics, whatever. But if you gave me the wrong change, nigga would speak up. And they were talking about like the differences between white folks and black folks. It wasn't that, but they would catalog who did and said what. And they said like 97% of the time, if you gave the black person the wrong amount of change, they would say something. You give it to a white person, they would just accept it and walk off. Whether, it's too much, too little, they just walk off. But a black person, hey, no, this is 47 cents. It should be 53 cents. And that was the funny part, because they're saying like, well, if that's the case, then we're told that black people have trouble with math and this, that, and other.
No. Okay, you have to pay attention when there's currency exchange. And
period.
It doesn't matter whether it's on a digital platform or it's an in-person physical one with a human being or a machine. Those self-checkout machines fuck up all the time. And you got to call the clerk over. And you're like, hey, my change is $57. It gave me $13. I need the rest of my money.
Right now, the big one that's out right now is when it calculates your tip. They literally have it says 10%, 15%, 20%, or 30%. And you just click one. Count that shit.
First of all, don't ever tip 10%. Don't be a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? Do
agreed.
18%.
No, hold it. But the thing is, when you let that thing calculate it, it's calculating high on purpose. Pay attention to that. What I'm saying is, folks ain't doing math no more. They're just pushing the button for 15, 16. But do the math. Make sure that amount is what it says it is, because it ain't what it say it is. And you give it a $7 tip when you only did $37 worth of money. Nah, man. Unless that's what you want to do, of course. What I'm saying is, don't trust these machines. Do the math.
How old were you when you started using money at the store?
Oh, hell.
Go back.
Yeah. We was like 4 years old at least.
What was the first things you remember buying? Candy? Candy was probably the first thing I bought.
Yeah. I'm literally thinking candy cigarettes.
I'm not talking about toys.
No.
Candy. Candy was the first thing I remember buying. And the penny candy was very important for kids.
Yes.
Here's the reason why. Because penny candy made you use math. But you had to do the math in your head.
Look, okay, how about this? I remember we were kids. If me and you were with my mom, and we would go to like they had Yonkers and Brandeis. Remember they had like the Center Mall.
Yes,
it's still there, but
anchor stores.
And remember they had a candy section. Like literally, and she would give us 25 cents a piece. Like, hey, go get 25 cents worth of, and you would go, and that was like literally like a little bit over like half a pound or like a quarter pound of candy.
But you had an assignment.
Yes.
And you wanted to be successful in the execution of this assignment.
That's a good 10 minutes away from my mom, where we're not bothering her.
And she knew exactly what to do. I'm going to give y'all motherfuckers some candy. You're going to leave me alone. I can go look at these clothes.
I'm on a mission. 25 cents worth of chocolate-covered raisins. Let's go. In that activity, you learn so much.
But you know what's funny, though? When I see a small child approach a register to buy something, that kid is learning how to survive.
But my daughter was in dance, and all of a sudden she doesn't want to be in dance anymore. My wife was, but she's like, why don't you put her back in there? Oh, she didn't want to do it no more. Look, she didn't want to do it because she was afraid of the crowd. You teach them while they're young to deal with crowds and deal with these social situations.
And her being a performer should know better than that. and
Oh,
teach her how to overcome stage fright.
my wife was the one who wants her back in. She's like, maybe I'll pay for it and get her back in dance. These are the things you learn at church. These are the things that you learn at school, how to deal with those social situations. Now people just avoid those social situations. That's that unsell shit where you're literally making your well, these people don't learn how to deal with these situations. You got all these men that can't approach women. Hell, a lot of these guys.
Failure. They're worried about failure.
Look, a lot of these guys who say they're gay, some of the motherfuckers ain't gay. They're just afraid to approach women, and they don't know how to engage women. It's easier for them. One of the things in the past, as I get it, is messed up, was you would call somebody that was gay a punk or this, that, and the other. You would call them weak, not because they were physically weak, it's because you gave up dealing with women. Dealing with women is hard. It ain't logical. It is pressing, grinding. But you chose, like, fuck it, I'm gonna fuck with men. So are you fucking with men because you're sexually attracted to men, or because you can't deal with women? You don't like your own mama. You're dealing with childhood trauma, and that's what this shit was. How many? Here's what they don't talk about. There's a lot of guys, like I said, there's a lot of people that raise a family. Then when they're in their 40s and 50s, they go explore the sexuality. But on the flip side, a lot of motherfuckers that said they was gay, when they hit 30, 40, they ain't gay no more. They want to have a family. You guys are like, no do backs. You can't go back. You can't come back to heterosexual. Nope. You're gay forever. And I'm like, that's not your business, and that's that person's story or testimony, whatever the fuck they want to call that shit. And I think there's too many times that we deal with this stuff that's personal. Look, back in the day, I think a lot of relationships stay together because you resolve the shit on a personal level. Now you got social media. Like your wife catches you cheating, or you catch your woman cheating, they blast it on social media. When back in the day, you resolved it. Like, okay, are we staying together? Or are we breaking up? Nigga, you got 27 kids on the outside. Okay, as long as you're raising them, you could have those conversations back then. Now everything is, girl, what you think? And look, I got a homegirl. I love her very dearly, beautiful spirit and everything. But I used to call her asshole. She's like, why you call me an asshole? Because you're an asshole that asks questions. The only reason you're asking me a question, you want somebody to agree with you. You're not searching for a solution. You're not looking for advice. But once you heard that I didn't agree with you, you're finding somebody, and that's what problem with social media. You're looking for people to agree with you. You're not looking for the correction, the truth, or the right way to act.
Okay. And so the overstimulation can feel like you have too many tabs opened in your mental internet browser, and your brain doesn't know what to do. As these things pile up, you may find your to-do list fills you with dread, and small chores feel bigger than they are, or your weekly obligations seem impossible to meet. What the brain does with that overload looks different for everyone. Toddlers can have temper tantrums, while adults might find themselves in the middle of an emotional outburst. We may feel tired or cry more easily. We might freeze or shut down and find it hard to problem solve. So other signs of overstimulation includes aggression or irritability, feeling fearful or tearful, headaches, joint pain, muscle tension or stiffness, poor concentration or focus, sleeplessness or fatigue. Now, 2 recent changes in the daily patterns of humans have contributed to overstimulation. They are working from home and technology. The pandemic greatly expanded the remote workforce, and for many people, home became the office. While working from home is convenient, it is also an opportunity to spend more time with things that overstimulate us, whether it's a deadline for a messy floor.
You literally leave home to get away from this shit. I mean, excuse me, you literally, when you leave work, you come home, they're separate. Now you're putting them together on a major level. Oh, wow, that's deep. That's deep.
So remote working eliminated the boundary between work and home. There's no downtime, and people are always on. People can only really focus for about 30 minutes at a time. Then the brain reaches the capacity and needs a 5-minute break. When you build in breaks, your brain is more effective. Consider these short windows a healthy way to treat your body and brain. See, we have 24-hour access to our phones, email, social media, and video games. No matter where we are, we can work, we can keep in touch with friends, and enjoy entertainment. While this connectivity is beneficial in many ways, it also makes it easy to get overstimulated.
Hey, what about diet? Well, I'm fat. People are fat now because we we have over we're
Those
overstimulated
are
by food.
choices. Those are
You,
choices.
you, I'm the example. You, you've known me literally since kindergarten, and I've had ADHD for years. So my mom, I wasn't allowed sweet cereals. You know, we all love we all love honeycomb and stuff like that. But my mom figured out early on, like, hey, I could eat the
You
sweet
was a
cereals on the
raisin
weekend,
bran eating motherfucker.
motherfucker, because she
I
knew
would
like
come over your house, and it was night and day. We had Captain Crunch and Golden Grams in my crib, and at yours, it was grape nuts. I'm like, really? Grape nuts
look.
in this bitch? I think I spent the night over there one time, and we got up to eat breakfast in the morning. I'm like, the fuck is this shit?
Hey, my mom figured out early on, like, look, if you get this little nigga sugar early in the morning, you are setting yourself up for
He's
failure.
a
But what it
gremlin.
is, but what it is it's literally overstimulation of your brain, giving those carbs, those sugars, those complex sugars early on. I was different at school, so I was allowed. I could have a sweet cereal like on Sunday and Saturday. That was it. Like my mom was like, "Fuck church. He gonna fuck up at church anyway." But like I said, that's when I had the honeycomb and the sugar smacks and diggums and all that shit. But during the week, she's like, "You got Cheerios and some bullshit and
Yeah.
Raisin Bran. That's it." And look, and then if when she left the room, I put so much sugar in the Cheerios, I had to dredge the bottom, and I would. It was like you was digging up sugar sediment, and you was
Trying to get a
so
fix.
yeah, man.
You
So
like a crackhead looking for a crack rock in the carpet and shit.
but I'm seeing it now. Like at my ex, I'm trying to tell her like her son has ADHD, and I'm telling her like, hey, a little nigga don't need them cookie crisp joints, but it's the weekend. During the week, not at all. But and I'm like, right now we are raising our children based on commercials and the fact that we want them to feel good, but don't want them to be good. We don't care about their health. We don't recognize that this food that's being picked was picked on purpose. The reason the food is the way it is because they're making us addicted to something. And when somebody does that, they simply say other stuff. That is the part you need to be paying attention to. The part they explain to you is one thing, but I want to know about the other stuff, my nigga. We got time today. Explain it to me.
So here are tips for managing sensory overload. Removing yourself from the situation. Finding a quiet space. Practicing mindfulness and relaxation exercises, including deep breathing. Getting good sleep. Taking care of your daily health with sunshine, movement, and good nutrition. And reducing technology usage when you can. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. If you need the lights turned off, the music turned down, or you want complete silence, say that to the people around you. It will help you to take those steps to reduce overstimulation. And if you feel stressed and overwhelmed all the time, talk to a mental health professional. So, how many times have you haven't been feeling well and there's like a bunch of people in the house with small children, and then there'll be somebody who come in like a caretaker, like, all right, hey, everybody get the hell out. He's not feeling well. And you lay down, and then it's almost like this pall of silence falls over the room as everybody walks away, and all that shit goes down the hall or downstairs, and you can sleep for a second, to sleep off a headache, or you can, reset your chakras or your energy centers in your body to rebalance yourself. You have to speak up when you're in an environment that is not conducive to peace.
Here's the problem. We've been convinced that if you speak up that you're rude, you're being inconvenient. But look, if you ain't the king or queen of your own castle, if you can't walk in like, hey, y'all shut the fuck up, go upstairs. Hey, for us, it was go out and play. We walked in there, me and you doing some shit. Your parents be like, hey, go outside and play. My mom would be like, go outside. I'm like, Mom, it's too hot. She's like, what is it, 98? No, it's not. Go outside. Like, we played until it was 103. Then we came in. And then we was doing Atari 2600. But the reason is because your parents are trying to think. They're trying to gather themselves. They're trying to decompress from work. For some people that I was having a drink. Other people it was silence. And right now there's so much noise pollution. And what Ross was telling you, this shit's so commonplace that we accept the shit instead of like, you know what, I need to preserve my peace. We talked about this in past podcasts. Preserve your peace. We talked about this in past podcasts where go outside and get some sun. Take your shirt off, lay there, get some sun, and just meditate. Just sun gaze. They tell you that you get cancer for looking at the sun. No, you don't.
The best time to do it is at dawn or near sunset when the light is the least intense.
Well, hold it. They say from 12 to 2 that light is irreplaceable. That's the shit that causes
No.
vitamin D and all that
No,
other
no, no, no,
stuff.
no, no, no. Listen. Trust me, this is actually ancient Taoist martial arts wisdom. Do it in the dawn or at sunset. Don't do it in the middle of the day.
Look,
You can burn your
you
cornea
need
doing that.
look, you need all all the sunlight you can get
No,
because
I'm
we're
talking
inside
about
so much.
the sun gazing.
I know what you meant, but
I'm
I'm
not talking
referring to
about sun exposure. It's two different things.
yeah,
Sun
yeah,
exposure is
true.
all day, you're fine. But I'm
Yep.
talking about sun gazing. Don't do it in the middle of the day when the light is the most intense.
Look, what we're saying is that we're convinced that staying inside is best. Staying inside is great if you need to get away, if you need some silence, but don't sit here and negate the fact that you need sun exposure, you need sun gazing, you need to have your feet in contact with the earth, you need to be hugging trees, you need to be doing that shit to properly charge yourself. Food is not the only way that you charge your battery, but we're convinced that's how this shit works. And we've been brainwashed to think that stuff. And we've been brainwashed not to fix ourselves. And we've been brainwashed to eat the wrong shit because of all the shit that we learned during World War II. They invented Cheetos during World War II because they had some shit left over. If you pay attention, the way they were fucking us over, like the vitamins and minerals they were giving us were usually byproducts or waste products from something else, and they would give it to you. And they're like, oh, well, we got potassium from turds in this treatment plant over here.
Yeah, we can sell
They
it to
were,
people.
yes. So, yeah, be careful where you're getting this shit from because
So
they got,
dangerous otherness refers to anything that is outside of your default morality system or at the edges of your morality system where you see that this is something you should not be messing with because it's detrimental to you. And be mindful and careful of any organization or any company that is trying to change the wording of something to make you think black is white or blue is red. Be careful with these things because this technology, as the 5%ers would call it, is what they want to use to shift your mind into going along with whatever it is they're selling you. They're always going to be selling you something. Just be mindful of what it is they're selling you and whether or not you need it or not. I say it all the time. I'll see a trailer for something or hear about the concept of a show. I'm like, I've seen this 3,000 times. I don't need to watch this again. I get it. I know what it's about. Especially like this dystopian shit. I was like, man, I don't need to watch a whole lot of dystopian sci-fi because I've already figured out a lot of those plot lines and I don't need some shit bringing me down right now. It's like, that's not creative.
look, I grew up on Star Trek. I know how this shit ends. Fuck y'all. Look. I think what blew my remember the show Serenity. I didn't watch the show. I watched the movie, and then I realized this is the other side of the Federation. So these are the people that didn't want to deal with the Federation. So you grew up watching Star Trek. You're like, the Federation's good, but there's motherfuckers that didn't want to deal with them niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, nah, I'm cool. Leave me alone. I'm on these outlying planets. I don't want the Federation's influence. And I like this show because it came from so I went back and started watching the show because I saw the movie and I'm like, yeah, this is a whole different vibe in this. I'm digging this. This is, because I'm older now. When you're a kid, you like Star Trek. When you get
discernment.
Yeah, when you get older, you're like, hey, I live in a society now where I don't want people telling me what to do. Let me figure this shit out on my own. I can take care of myself. That's why we need blacksmithing. That's what. Look, when you sit here and look at these cars, they ain't got no metal parts no more. It's not because the metal parts cost more to produce. It's because the plastic parts will fail, and they want the plastic parts to fail on purpose. Look at Nissan. Look at BMW.
Engineered obsolescence.
Yes,
So
manufactured obsolescence.
Dangerous otherness will continue to come at you with increasing intensity and speed as the days progress because the world that we live in now is not the world that we grew up in. And it continues to change. When September 11th happened, we were blasted into an alternate reality that was darker than our preceding reality. So now here we are.
Yep.
Now here we are in a surveillance state, and they're watching everything, and we're snitching on ourselves, and we're willfully, giving up all the information. So we've been tricked into a lot of this stuff, but it's also on us to be aware of when we're being tricked. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.